It's pretty wild to think that a single legal document, almost 4,000 years old, could tell us so much about an entire civilization. Today, we're going to dig into the Code of Hammurabi. And trust me, what we find is way more than just an eye for an eye.
An eye for an eye. Yeah, when you hear Hammurabi's code, that's almost certainly what pops into your head, right? It's famous, it's brutal, and for a long, long time, it's pretty much all anyone remembered about it.
Oh, not even close. That one famous line is just a tiny piece of a massive puzzle. 282 laws, to be exact. And when you look at all them together, they paint this incredible picture of a society that was complex, super structured, and in some ways, almost shockingly modern. So let's start cracking the rest of the code. First thing to know, the code isn't just a document. It's a physical monument. This thing, called a stele, is an 8-foot-tall pillar of solid rock. It was designed to stand in the middle of a city square, where everyone could see it. It was a permanent record, a message literally carved in stone, and we're about to read it. And to really get your head around just how ancient this is, look at this timeline. The Code of Hammurabi is older to the ancient Romans than the ancient Romans are to us. Just let that sink in for a second. We are talking about deep, deep history, which makes what's written on that stone even more amazing.
So, who was the guy behind the code? Was this Hammurabi just some power-hungry tyrant? Well, according to him, he wasn't just ruling his people. He was on a mission from the gods.
Right there in the prologue to the laws, Hammurabi makes his case. He claims the top gods, Anu and Bel, personally chose him for the job. So he's not framing himself as some conqueror. No, he's the divinely appointed shepherd of his people, with a sacred duty to bring justice to the world. And when you actually read his goals, they sound incredibly noble, don't they? He's talking about creating a fair society, protecting the vulnerable, making sure everyone can prosper. These are really powerful ideals, and they're baked right into the very beginning of the code. But, with such a grand vision, how did justice actually play out for the average person? Let's get into the laws themselves and see how those lofty goals translated to reality on the ground. And this is where it gets complicated. That famous eye for an eye rule? Turns out, it only applied if you hurt someone from your own social class. If a commoner hit a nobleman, the punishment wasn't an eye for an eye. It was 60 humiliating lashes in public. Justice in Babylon was anything but blind. It all depended on who you were. And the code went way beyond just crime. It was basically an economic blueprint for the whole kingdom, setting prices for jobs. For example, a surgeon's fee for setting a bone was exactly 5 silver shekels. This shows us a surprisingly complex and regulated economy, with the government making sure there was financial stability. And here's the flip side, which perfectly shows the code's brutal logic. Sure, you get a fixed fee for your work, but if you mess up badly, if your mistake costs a patient their life or their sight, the punishment was equally severe. They would literally cut off your hands. High stakes, to say the least. Then you stumble upon laws that just feel like they're from another planet. Take the trial by ordeal. If someone accused you of sorcery but had zero proof, your guilt was decided by the river. They'd throw you in. If you sank, you were guilty. But if you survived, you were innocent, and your accuser was put to death. It's just this wild mix of legal procedure and raw superstition. All right, so let's zoom out for a second. When you put all these pieces together, the class differences, the economic rules, the brutal punishments, what kind of society are we really looking at? At its heart, the whole system is built on this one idea, retributive justice. The punishment is meant to mirror the crime, often literally. This isn't about rehabilitation or making someone a better person. It's a philosophy that's all about balance through direct and often very harsh payback. And this justice was applied across a really rigid, 3-tiered society. At the top, you had the Amalu, the elites. In the middle were the Mashinu, the commoners. And at the very bottom, the Ardu, slaves. Your class decided everything. Remember that eye for an eye was only a law between equals. Your social status literally defined what justice meant for you. So if we put it all together, we're seeing a society that was highly organized. Yes, it was strictly hierarchical and patriarchal, but it was also economically sophisticated, with strong rules about things like contracts and private property. And at the center of it all was a very powerful, very controlling government. So,
Given how harsh and unequal a lot of these laws seem to us today, why are we still talking about the Code of Hammurabi 4,000 years later? What is its true, lasting legacy? Well, for one thing, its sheer size was revolutionary. 282 laws. This wasn't just a handful of rules. It was a comprehensive legal system for an entire society, one of the very first of its kind, covering everything from family fights to bad business deals. But its most world-changing idea, its real legacy, was making the law public and permanent. By carving these laws into stone for everyone to see, Hammurabi established a radical new principle. Justice comes from a known, written code, not just from the mood of a ruler. This is a foundational step, a huge leap towards what we now call the rule of law. And that leaves us with a pretty deep thought. Hammurabi's code was one society's ambitious, brutal, and complex attempt to define justice. It really forces us to ask ourselves, how have our own ideas of fairness and punishment evolved? And maybe more importantly, what parts of our own laws will look just as strange or even as barbaric to the people who dig them up 4,000 years from now?